All right, everyone. We are here at 1980s Tabletop RPG. I really have to shorten that name. We are reviewing our game of Boot Hill, which we played just recently. Our special guest was Jay Cowell, so he is here to get his perspectives on now that we've finished playing the game. And if you want to see the game, the links are below. But if you're just here for the review, you're just here for the review. So, Jay, overall, did you enjoy yourself playing the game?
Oh yeah, I had a great time. I thought it
Good.
was really cool.
Yeah.
It was a bit confusing to like get used to the idea of rolling low is good.
Oh, isn't that funny? And there's a few games like that. Isn't that interesting? You're right, though.
I feel like in my mind I was still desperate for those 20s, and I had
Yeah.
to be like, no, you don't want the 20s, but no, it was really fun.
And now, you know, the weird thing about that is that it wouldn't take much for them to flip it for the game
Yeah.
and roll high like you do in every other thing in life. But for some reason, there's a couple role playing games where you want to roll low too. It's an interesting point there, right there. So strange.
This is like it's like the RPG version of like Apple versus Microsoft, right?
Yes,
No
there you go.
no one's gonna budge. But
So,
I
what
think
is
the
your
one-
what is your experience? What role playing games have you played before this? Of course.
Yeah, it's a bit sad really, because my I had some friends who were like family friends, and they were a bit older than me,
Okay.
and they all played D&D, but they were like kind of cool teenagers, and I think I must have been about 10, so
Yeah.
I wasn't quite old enough to sort of be to not be overexcited. So
Yeah.
they sort of let me make characters and things like that, and they gave me a beautiful monster book I showed you the other day. I've got like an original 90s, the monster encyclopedia for D&D.
Okay. Yeah.
But I never actually got to play because they were like, we've got our own campaign, and I totally get it. But it was only about 2 years ago when I finally got, or maybe a bit longer, it's probably 4 or 5 years ago. But when the 5th edition came out,
Okay. Yeah.
they re-released the red box,
Yeah.
and it just seemed like it was simple enough that I could get people to play that I knew that weren't D&D people. So I ended up going from 0 to DMing a game where no one had played Dungeons and Dragons before. But it was super fun. It was really cool.
Yeah. So when you were a kid, you would have watched it, so you knew like how to play it, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was cool because I played that, and then D&D is a weird thing, isn't it? It's like when people find out you playing D&D, and through comics and through other comedians and stuff, they'd be like, "Oh, you play D&D." As soon as I'd played like 1 or 2 games and mentioned it to people, I got invited to more clubs. And
it is like it was before. It's so weird because things are different now because of lockdown. But before lockdown, it was a little almost exclusive club, but not in a cool way, I would say. I would say like some people are embarrassed that they play it, and some people like still enjoy themselves. And the thing about it too is that if you don't play it, you don't get it.
Yeah.
It's one of those games where it's like, well, you don't like looking at and watching people playing out of the blue is just like, I don't know what's going on here. It's not like a board game.
It is. You hit the nail on the head there. It's the opposite of cool, but also I think it's like when you admit to people proudly, as I do, that I play D&D. I think it's just glorious level nerdery. Like you're just like, I'm proud of this, and I've noticed attitudes have changed since everyone's been on lockdown. So I mentioned that we were playing Boot Hill last week to a couple of my friends who in the past would have just taken the mickey out of me or something, but I think now they're a bit like, "Oh, you're going on an adventure, like that sounds good."
What is that? Tell us about your day.
Go back to your sports.
And what's interesting, one of the things about me with all these 80s games is that the entire game is in this book. It's 128 pages, and everything you need to know is in this little book like this. And what I love about I find that the 80s ones are just simpler to learn. Here it is, but I don't think it takes anything away from it. I don't think we need 8 books to play a game about the Wild West, but it seems that in the 80s, when the games came out, it was for everyone. And then as the years went by until now, it's for really hardcore people.
Yeah.
You know, it's not.
For me personally, I really enjoy, I like that. I think there's a fine line between, so the two places where I think D&D can go, not wrong, but they're not to my taste.
Yeah.
The two ends of the spectrum are the games where everything has to be rolled for, everybody's checking all the like weights and you want to jump that small gap, or how much weight have you got on your back? And for some people who maybe have been playing for years, that's so easy to calculate, it doesn't bother them. But for me, it slows down the game.
Oh, very much so, yeah.
But the other end of the scale, which I think is also can be a bit much for me, is when you're playing with somebody maybe who hasn't played very much, and they're just like, I'm going to jump up here and swing across this and they're like, explain this massive elaborate scene, and you're like, well, you can't just have one roll for that.
Yeah.
Finding that middle spot where it's,
Yeah.
even.
And once again, you got to keep the rules simple for the DM that way too, because there was when we were playing, there's a few times like, I forgot where that is. I didn't realize we'd be brawling so much. I think I said that one time, like, where was the brawling chart again? Like things will come up like that. There was a lot more horseback riding than I intended for that. I don't know how we ended up with so much of that.
Yeah.
No, we do a few of these, and actually Boot Hill doesn't come with any characters pre-made, so you have to make your characters. Some games come with pre-made characters. Some of them are in a universe like Aliens, where they have the people from the movie, or Marvel that have superheroes already. How do you feel? Do you enjoy making your own characters? Do you like that aspect of it? Is it even necessary?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like when I started, and when I said, years ago when I was a kid and I'd make characters, I remember cheating and not that I ever used the characters, but I'd re-roll things and be like, I want to be a badass. I want to be, but nowadays I kind of love it when you roll something awful, because that gives you a clue as to what that character's like.
Yes, that's true. You were saying that, yeah.
And my favorite person to play with is a friend of mine, Mark, who, when we play D&D, he tends to play like a big, chunky barbarian who basically he's just created this character, which is just a really simple character who is like, I am going to swing my axe first.
Yeah.
And think later. And it's like a good comedy, right? What he's going to do. So you're kind of laughing before he's even done it. He's in the DM spent ages explaining this elaborate court of gnomes, and there's gold and there's a complicated question, and it turns to Mark and he's just like, I swing my axe at the nearest gnome, and you're like, and well, I think that could derail certain games, but I think if you're consistent with your character as a player, then the DM should be able to kind of adjust the story to you. So I think he stumbled onto a very simple character, but it was fun to play with. So for myself, I try and look at the roles and look at the sheet, and then start playing in a way that
like an actor would take on a role.
Yeah. I think that's really fun, and I've never rolled good enough to play anyone who's really intelligent, which suits me. I'm happy to play. I really love playing dumb characters. I think that's really fun.
Yeah. And of course, in Boot Hill, most of them were illiterate. Not to say if you can't read, you're dumb. Anybody watching, if you can't read, that's okay. You can still be smart in your own way. But a lot of people were uneducated, shall we say, in that world too. So.
I'd be really interested to speak to people who played. Like, I've got some friends, I've never really talked to them about it because they're a bit secret about their game, but they've been playing for, they're just friends of mine, but they've been playing for like 10 years or something. I didn't really grow up. I became friends with them later, but they've always played D&D in a group, and it's a pretty tight group. It's always them. They would play every week, and I'd be really interested to hear what happens with characters over 10 years, because you can't really be, I don't know if you can be a dumbass for 10 years. I mean, that might be really funny, or that might be really awful. I would love to know, because obviously as you level up as well, you're going to get cooler spells, or
Yeah.
you know, particularly I feel like if you've been playing a magician or a sorcerer or whatever for 10 years, I feel like at some point you've got to start playing smart. I don't know. I'll be interested to find out from someone. Like,
well, that's what we did. But I mean, you know, like the reason why we're doing this is because when I was a kid, I played these to death and then just stopped. And because of now with the lockdown, we've, you know, re-kicked it. And I found out some of these books were quite cheap to buy on eBay. So I'm like, well, hell with it. Let's go again. But we would switch games because we would get, same as what you said. I remember a few times just like, either we ran out of adventures, so we just switched to a different game, or our characters got too strong, because that can happen in D&D, like you said, you know, like well, it's just ridiculous, you know. You got to fight Thor tomorrow because he's the only one that has a shot against you. Yeah. Thor and his 10 dragons. Okay. Yeah. We might lose this one, you know, so that's what we found. So yeah, we always like, well, let's, you know, we play one for a while and then move on to the next one. And the weird thing about playing with you guys, with me, is you guys did not grow up kind of in that Wild West world where, I mean, even for me, it's a bit before my time, but even for me, there was a show called Bonanza on TV, which was a Western show. And just before my time, so in reruns, where there was an era where all Hollywood pumped out was Western movies and Western TV shows. There was tons of them on television. I think the longest running television show before Law and Order was Rawhide. I want to say that. And that was a show. Clint Eastwood was on it for a few years, and just a bunch of big actors. Wow. A bunch of big actors did their time. It's almost like it was a soap opera. It was on for about 20 years or something like that. I think the Law and Order show beat it in the longest running drama show. But yeah, they had a fascination with it. And it's not even a big period of time, really. It's not like 100 years or something like that. It's not like, say, here in England with the fascination with medieval times, which was, you know, a very chunk of a couple hundred years of medieval time, right? So, but like the fascination that they had with it was monstrous. So I was exposed to a lot of that as a kid. You constantly would get at least one cowboy outfit as a child for Christmas.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of died down a lot. You don't see too much. There's the occasional TV show or there's the occasional movie that comes out. But you guys, like, was there anything in there like that, you know, you were like, geez, I wouldn't even know what it would be like in this world? Was there anything like that?
I think it was, for me, because I've only really, I think you're right. I just certainly didn't grow up with anything on TV that I remember watching that was like Western, but I did fall into, I think a lot of people's dads, sure their mums too, but a lot of people's dads loved, like, you know, Clint Eastwood films, the spaghetti westerns and stuff like that. So I think I had sort of those things in my head. And as I've got older and enjoy cinema more, you know, it's a cool genre to dig around in. Like I've seen, I forget what it's called now, but there's the Seven Samurai, and then there's the Western version.
Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, right. So yeah, like films like that I've really enjoyed. But I think it was interesting because I think everything in my head was really epic just because all I've seen films. But yeah, I don't know. I think if you played it more, I guess things like, if I'm honest, because I like video games, it's like Red Dead Redemption.
Yes,
that
that's
kind
true.
of showed me some stuff. But I wouldn't know what to order in the bar. Thankfully, you were like, it's whiskey. I'm like, okay, I get that. Like,
that's right. You're trying to get a gin.
You wouldn't explain it. You know, I could imagine without a prompt, I would have walked in there and been like, hello, whiskey, tonic, no.
Can I get a list of your cocktails, please?
Yeah,
it's beer. Beer would be flat beer. It wouldn't have bubbles in it. It would be so that's an ale. They would have that, and then it would be whiskey. That was that's what they would make back then. A little down south, you might get tequila closer to the border, and also Mexico owned Texas for a while. So I'd imagine tequila was floating around that area too.
Yeah,
but cool. That's it.
But it's cool that, you know, Boot Hill had the mechanics for the one shot, the careful shot.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Those things that kind of, that made it exciting and made the gunfights probably a bit more interesting.
Yeah, it just adds a twist to it too. And I think it was Drew that we rolled to be right or left-handed, and he was right-handed. And he goes like, why do you have to bother? I said, well, if you get shot in the hand or the arm, you got to use your left, and you wouldn't be as good. He goes, well, that's a nice little twist to add to it. That's a nice little thing. Not many games do that, do they?
Yeah, well, I think there was. It was fun when we were in the saloon and the guy appeared behind me with the shotgun.
Yes.
And I think I heard the and sort of turned around and I was like, right, I'm going to, rather than go for the careful shot, I went for a few shots because in my head, like, this is risky. Yeah. But I know me in that situation. I wouldn't be calm. I'd be like, whoa, you know. And
very true.
It kind of, very true. I mean, it kind of worked out, and it was like, and that to me was kind of funny in my head that my character like panicked but still got, you know, a deadly shot off. And like,
shoot and pray, shoot as many as you can. Yeah.
There's this image of him sort of blowing on his gun and being like, "Oh no, sorry."
Did I hit him?
Yeah.
So it's nice to it's nice to have this now, of course, during lockdown, because they certainly are a time killer. Is like they take up a good chunk of your day. You know, when you want that. I'm not saying it sounds like I'm saying it's a bad thing, but it's a good way to kill an afternoon, certainly. With the people like that. There was something else anything else you want to add to the review?
I think I would, just on that point, I think one of the things that you know, if somebody's sitting there and they're thinking about playing D&D with their buddies again, one of the things I think worked really well that I was surprised by was that because in the game, you know, I know it's Boot Hill, but because in our game we were taking turns, it avoids that problem that sometimes you have if you and your mates jump on a Zoom call just for a beer or whatever, because it's difficult to get that conversational flow if there's a few of you in the room.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You end up talking over each other a little bit or whatever, but the fact that we had turns meant that it was easy to hear everybody. I felt like I was enjoying everybody.
Oh, that's interesting.
And their jokes and stuff, and that was a nice thing to do because, you know, me and my buddies have been playing. We kind of gave up on the, you know, the house party calls or whatever that was early lockdown stuff, and now we're just like, we play some games online, but you know, a lot of people I know don't play video games, so I'm now thinking, oh, maybe I'll try and get some people together to do some sort of D&D thing.
You're right, actually. Boy, this is really off topic, but you're right. When we tried to do that, we tried to do a Zoom call, and there's like 5 of us or 6 of us, and only 2 people can really speak at once, can't they? In that situation. Yeah. Whereas you're right, when you play a game, it's sort of like, okay, now it's your turn. Everyone roll. You don't do that in real life. Okay, I want to talk. Well, who rolled the highest? They get to speak. Maybe we should bring that in. We should bring that into everyday conversations.
You roll a low initiative and you have to sit in the corner for a little bit.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and in terms of the game, I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but I thought the ending was superb. I thought it was really, really, really well played.
We were having a good chuckle because you're the only one who said, like, well, of course that was going to happen. Like, you're the one like, yeah, no spoilers. You got to watch it. Links below.
Yeah, I thought, you know, there was you know, if that was a movie, you would have watched everybody bond and everybody come together as a group and become stronger and fight adversity, and then suddenly it's just big swing.
Well, how that came about is that we played the James Bond one, and unfortunately we rushed a little bit to the end. And now as I edit it together, I kind of got to put like a subtitles to say what happened because we just kind of rushed it. And I didn't really like how that one ended, although watch it, it's really good. But so this time I was like, I want something at the end here. We got to have an ending, you know, you got to have it because it's not like we're going to play it tomorrow. We might play it again. If people really like it, maybe we'll do another one of the Boot Hill series too. That's how this is going to work. Everybody watching it, if you saw one, you want to see us do it again, just keep voting for it or tell us, do you want to do this again? And we'll definitely do it again. I don't know how we're going to pick up after we ended it, but I'll figure a way how to pick it all back up again. find a way to put everyone back together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and once again, that's that's life back then too. I mean, the crazy thing about life back then is that you see it in some TV shows and movies, is that a guy would pull up in a wagon, and he'd pull out like a jar of or a bottle of like miracle medicine, and he'd get a guy from the crowd. Here, you try it. The guy drinks it, and the guy can lift like super strong strength. And then no one said, like, didn't he come into town with that guy? Didn't he pull up? And people would buy it. Snake oil salesman, basically, is what they say. Oh, it'll cure everything like that. And I was just fascinated to, this is no internet, no radio, no telephones, nothing.
Yeah.
50% of your letters that you send didn't even get to where they were going. You know what I mean? Like, that's the chance you took when all right, here you go. Here's a letter. Let's, fucking hope it makes it, right? In 6 months from now. So when someone showed up and just said, this will cure all your stuff, you just went, oh, of course it will. I trust this person. Here's my 25 cents a bottle. So that kind of stuff happened so much back then. People were swindled all the time.
And there was so many worlds to explore. Like, as I read, I saw The Revenant, was that a couple of years ago, and I read the book afterwards. And since then, I've been a bit more interested in like, the sort of North America and the era of, pioneers and trapping and all that stuff. And what's cool about this genre, I don't know if maybe it's a separate role-playing genre, I don't know, but I'm just thinking in my head now when you said that about places not having the internet, it's like you've got worlds within this world, because you've got the one that comes in my head with the spaghetti western deserts, but you've also got this North America, because America's a big place, right? And what's that like? Forests.
Yeah, you got. I mean, that's the thing. Every now and then you do meet an American who doesn't travel, and I always say, well, they have everything there. They have the desert, they have a forest, they have the mountains, they have beaches, they have everything like that. And you're right. Someone could be a trapper back in those days, up in the mountains doing that, and someone could be in the desert trying to get water to them. And there was lots of mining. There was everything under the sun. A lot of cattle ranching too, to make your cash, and all sorts of things like that. And we got to use your farming experience, which I didn't think would come up, but it did. Yeah.
That's my goal. If we play again, I'm gonna try and double my use of farming. I got it out once this game. Each game I want to double it.
That's right. More farming running into the thing too. I think we almost got through everyone's skills, which I didn't even plan to. We're just like, I guess we can. Yeah, sure. Let's throw that in there. Let's get everyone's skills to work. All right, so I give the game a thumbs up. How about you?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, give the game a thumbs up. So everyone, that has been our review of Boot Hill for 1980s tabletop RPG. Once again, we thank Jay Cowell for joining us. Say goodnight, Jay.
Night.
Yeah, there you go.